watch your leverage, because it is tempting, especially when people are like, well, you can borrow at 7 and you can make 10, right?
Mhm.
Like that's what people say, even to me. And I'm sitting at roughly 50% loan to value in my portfolio. Like most of my properties in California, insane appreciation, not much rental cash flow at all, right? It's like the
Yeah.
complete opposite of Oklahoma. That's why I actually went to Oklahoma, because I wanted balance. California was all appreciation, no cash flow. Like during COVID, all my single family homes in California are appreciated by $500,000 each on average. And I did absolutely nothing. I
Wow.
literally did nothing, right? Rented the same tenant, barely cash flows, despite self management, not factoring in if I
Mhm.
have repairs. If I have repairs, I'm cash flow negative that month, right?
Mhm.
If I were to get third party property management, I'd be cash flow negative. So I just said that's not sustainable. That's why I actually cashed out, refinance some of my single family homes. Now they're what I call alligators, unfortunately. So
What
now
do you
they're
mean by
cash flow
alligator?
negative. So
Oh, there.
alligator is basically like you're losing money every month. And I took that money and then basically bought my apartments in my mobile home park
Nice.
in Oklahoma. But to your point, like my 26 unit, so I bought for 500,000, 26
Oh,
unit, and yeah, in Bethany, Oklahoma. The water, yeah, yeah. Well, I just thought, like, I come from Los Angeles, right? I'm like, a condo
yeah.
costs $500,000. I can get a
Exactly.
26 unit for like 500,000. That's crazy to me. That's insane to
Hmm.
me. And it was like a tired landlord. He self managed it himself. He was a lawyer. Sent out direct mailer. I literally offered him like I think 520, expecting him to counter me. I was willing to go up to like 700, being honest, but he just accepted my offer immediately. And I was just like, okay, sweet. And
Yeah.
then got under contract. Put 25% down, and I actually negotiated about $60,000 in seller repair credit because they need a new
Nice.
roof. And once again, he could have said no, and I still would have taken the deal down, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
But I just said, hey, worst case, you ask, and they say no, or they say yes, or they say something less. So he gave me $60,000 in seller repair credit, and I basically could use that to cut my down payment in half. So essentially, I only put like 12, 13% down the deal instead of 25, because I got 60K back.
Hmm. Nice.
And I used that money to replace the roof, because it was an old roof, right? Like the insurance was like saying, hey, you got to replace that roof if you want us to insure
Yeah.
you. So, I had the money set aside. And what I did was I renovate all the units. So it took me about 2.5 years. I was going slowly. I wasn't like rushed, because I wasn't hard money. I wasn't bridge debt. And,
Hmm.
so I wasn't under the gun. And I locked in a 4% interest rate. So I'm like, I'm not worried,
Wow.
right? So from there, I did self fund the renovations by pulling money out of my single family home. So I put $300,000 to fix this all up, like all the units
Nice.
over time. So what's nice about multifamily, as you know, like I could be renovating like 5 units, but I'm still getting income from like 20 units. So
Exactly.
it's versus single family home, when you're renovating it, you're getting zero income. So
100%.
I kind of like that conceptually, that, hey, it's nice. Like I was not getting crazy cash flow, but enough to like float the property
Oh,
while
yeah.
I'm renovating it. So it kind of mitigated the risk for me. And, I probably renovate each unit about 10 to 14K per door. It was like, new kitchen cabinets, LVP flooring, scrape the popcorn ceilings. I had to replace a lot of the water heaters, because they were the Zinsco ones, the Zinsco water heaters.
Yeah.
Had to replace those, which was baked in, and basically repainted the exterior, retouched the interior, and then basically that's how we renovate all the units. So it
Mhm.
went from C class to probably, I would call it, the look inside was probably like maybe like a B plus in terms of the inside. And then we were charging, so that the owner was charging 500, but all bills paid, which I didn't like.
Wow.
So if you're 500 all bills paid, it's effectively only netting about 350 for rents, because utilities it was about 100, 150 on average. So his effective rent was 350, but the market was around 700 to 800, depending on, one bedroom or two bedroom. So that's exactly what I did. I came in there, renovate all the units, and I was able to raise the rents. Some tenants would leave. Some tenants would actually upgrade from the old unit to the new unit, and then I would then renovate their unit. Basically, I was able to double the rent. I know it makes me sound like an evil landlord, but basically able
It
to
is what
increase
it
the rent.
is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean,
The
I put in
value.
300K to fix it up, right?
Exactly.
And my rents honestly were still below market rents a little bit, right? I always
Yeah.
try to do that. I want to be a little bit below so that I have margin.
Exactly. Were these one bed, one baths, Stephen, or two bed, one
They
bath?
were. it was half half. So it was a mix of one bed, one bath, and two bedroom, one bath.
Okay, nice.
So it was a good mix. So now I was able to rent it out for like a one bedroom was around 700. The two bedroom you could kind of push closer to 800.
Nice.
And like at one point we hit 100% occupancy. So I knew my rents were good and reasonable because if
Oh yeah.
you're only 100% if you're a little bit below market. If you're,
Yeah.
higher and you'd have some vacancies. So basically with apartment complexes, the value is based on net operating income divided by the market cap rate. It's not based on sales comps. So
What
if
did
I
you
doubled
value the
the
cap on that? Sorry.
at the time, I had about an 8 cap on the deal when I first
Okay,
came
nice.
in,
Yeah.
and I think it could have at one point it was probably less than an 8 cap, but I just kept 8 cap to be like
Yeah.
conservative. But basically, I was able to double my NOI because I doubled the rents, and you have fixed costs of owning apartments, right? Insurance is the
Yeah.
same, property tax is the same, the water bill was the same occupancy.
Mm-hmm.
So I had the economies of scale where I was able to. I think when I took over the property, the owner was getting $8,000 a month, and now I'm at $16,000 a month. So what happens if you double your NOI, assuming the same cap rate, you doubled the value of your asset. So I bought it for half a
Mm-hmm.
million, put in 300, and now it's worth about 1.6 million.
Wow.
So I could have done obviously a huge cash out refinance if I wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
I would pay a prepay as you alluded to. So commercial, unfortunately, there's a step down. So 5% year one, 4% year two, 3%, 2%, 1%. Um, and with commercial, as you know, it's not fixed, 30-year fixed, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
So you can do a
5-year balloon.
3-year
520.
balloon, 5-year, seven. I did a 10. So I
Nice.
tried to hold on as long as possible. But there are actually lenders out there now where they will do 30-year fixed on apartment complexes, but you're going to pay a higher
Mm-hmm.
interest rate. Probably. It's Velocity Mortgage. I was like, wow, I wish I had that option because
Yeah.
30-year fixed is amazing. Like, like
Oh
you're
yeah.
guaranteed for like the life of the property essentially versus now in 10 years or 5 more years from now, I'm forced to refinance whether I want to or not.
Is is that value? Have you looked into Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac funding on a deal like that? Can you get that on that size deal?
So I engaged kind of more like portfolio lenders and debt service coverage ratio lenders, and they did actually qualify me in DSCR, but I didn't engage like a Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac. I mean, I bought mine with Bank of the West, which is now BMO, so obviously I would engage them as well because
Mm-hmm.
they follow Fannie Freddie guidance. But there are lenders that work with that. For me, I'm sure like you, I usually engage multiple lenders and brokers on my deals to see what the options are because yes, the loan amount is a little bit less than what they're used to, but they did have a product where like I basically could pull out like 75% loan to value, which is roughly about 1.2.
Mm-hmm.
So I just said I could have, like you said, literally got my down payment back, got my renovation cost back, plus another 400,000 on top of that. But now this property is paper thin in terms of the margins, but then I would
Mm-hmm.
have whatever my money to go buy more. So, was tempted to do that, but I'm glad I didn't because now this property is kind of like my cash cow in my portfolio, if I'm being honest. Like this one carries the team. It's like the
I
LeBron
bet.
James or
Sounds like an
of
awesome deal. It's
my
like textbook.
portfolio. Yeah, it's like the textbook deal. And like you said, I only have a 350K loan on this property now. I only pay $2,000 a month, and I'm gross renting 16K. So like, am I
Wow.
ever going to be worried about this deal not cash flowing? Probably not, right?
Yeah, not
So
at all.
it does give you that peace of mind to like, just leave that money in the deal and then just sit on it. So I definitely empathize with that approach. And like I said, like what we're trying to do is build long-term wealth and make it sustainable for the rest of our lives, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's the name of the game. So that's why I've actually considered because right now I'm active income as a pharmacist,
Mm-hmm.
right? And to your point, built up a $6+ million net worth, but my quality of life is exactly the same. I still go to work every Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. I still live in the same house that most people would live in as a pharmacist, right? In LA.
Yeah.
I drive a Tesla, but everyone has a Tesla in California,
Yeah.
right? So you're not like you're that special unless you have the Cybertruck. I didn't want to stick out that much. But like my lifestyle, if you were to compare it to a normal pharmacist about any assets, it's exactly the same, right? Like
Yeah.
it's nothing different. So I have thought like if I want to retire early and travel, I would basically have to sell some of my properties, pay Uncle Sam, unfortunately,
Hmm.
and then just pay off my primary residence, own it free and clear, and then maybe pay off one or both of my apartment complexes and then own those free and clear as well.
Hmm.
So, have you kind of thought of that approach of like paying off your primary or paying off some of your rentals? Obviously, you have 50 units, so you could probably
Great
liquidate
question.
half if you want to, and then pay off the other half, and now you're golden with everything owned free and clear.
That's a great question. So I haven't really. I am very pro debt. I don't know what it is, but debt does not make me uncomfortable one bit. I actually got a question. I was doing Q&A on my Instagram yesterday, and somebody asked, is your truck paid in full or is it paid off? It's not paid off. Like I said, I've got the cash to pay it off, but I've got the way I look at it is I know on average, if I go flip a home, because flipping is now a large part of my active income. Of course, I don't love getting rid of assets, but the properties I buy to flip are the ones that don't cash flow. I don't want to pass up on a deal that doesn't cash flow, and so I'll still buy it and flip it. And so, um, if I go flip a home, my average from purchase to exit is about 4 months, 4.5 months, and I double my money. A textbook deal for me, I just closed one the other day, 10 in, 30 out, so I actually tripled my money on that. It flies. Every dollar I put in, at the beginning of the year, I'm making 6 to 8 by the end of the year. Y- When I think about that in terms of like, okay, I've got debt on my truck and I've got debt on my personal home. Well, if I use that money and just go pay off my assets, I could have instead used that money and went and continued to get a better return with buying and selling houses instead. And so for me, I just don't think it makes sense. I mean, and once again, I think it just depends on everyone's goals. Like you said, if the goal is travel, then like perfect, do it. So that's what I love about real estate. There's really no right or wrong. But for me, I personally don't even think I want to, at least at this point in my life, which I'm 24 as well. And I think that people do slow down as they get a little bit older. And so I will say now, and this is something I tell myself all the time, is like my mindset does shift and it shifts constantly. So like once again, I used to not believe in burrs at all. And now I do think burrs serve a purpose. I think there's a correct way to do them, and the correct way to cash out. And so right now in my life, I really don't want to think about slowing down until I'm about 250K net a month per month. And I also don't think that I can get there until I'm probably 40, so another 16 years or so. Maybe I get there a little sooner, maybe I don't, but you know, I really would like a place on Maui in Hawaii. I'd also like a nice boat, and I would like to be able to go fish, and none of that stuff is affordable at all. And you really can't do that unless you have a lot of cash. And that's what I think that I would enjoy doing. But at the same time, I just enjoy the hunt of finding deals, putting deals together. I enjoy leading my team and now making content as well. I get a lot of people there, just watching my content and are like, hey, I've always thought about real estate investing, but now I'm doing it because of watching your content. And so that's been really cool to see as well. So a lot of that stuff keeps me going, keeps me motivated. And so at this point in my life, no, I don't think that I'm anywhere close to paying off assets. And I still feel like a very small dog, in the grand scheme of things. And, you know, even listening to you and some of the assets you're holding, I'm like, I've still got a long ways to go in terms of where I want to be. So I'm happy. I'm just not satisfied. And like you've seen, like the quality of life doesn't exactly change. And that's where I think a lot of people don't realize whether you're making at a certain point, more money doesn't equal more happiness. I think there's a baseline of like probably right around $10,000 a month. If you can live on $10,000 a month, you can have nice people, you have a nice car. Of course, it depends on where you live, but 10 grand a month gets you pretty far. And then past that, it's like just what more you can buy. I'm not any more happy now that I'm making 50, 60, sometimes 100 grand a month than I am when I was making 10 grand a month. I buy more real estate and, maybe travel a little bit more lavishly. But once you get to a point where you don't exactly have to like stick to a strict budget, I think that for me is where like there's not a threshold that makes you that much happier above that. And so, one more thing I'll say, I put on my story yesterday, something I realized early on is when, I think this applies to most people, but when you buy new shoes, you get like a dopamine hit and they're new, you don't want to get them dirty and like, like it's a little bit of a dopamine hit. Same if you buy a new shirt or a new hat. It's different for everybody, but I think the same applies for when people buy, like, say, a new house, to go from a $300,000 house to, say, a $500,000 house, there's going to be a huge dopamine hit. And I think that people are going to have like this happiness for a couple of months, but then they'll fall back to a baseline happiness, like where that's just the normal, and same with a new vehicle. I could take my truck and I could go buy the new version of my truck and I definitely am going to have like a dopamine hit for, I don't know, might be a couple weeks, might be a month, but I'll fall back to a baseline where it's just the normal over time. And so that's why like I try not to correlate my happiness to materialistic things and more so like traveling and enjoying family, enjoying friends, and I think as a younger guy like that was really cool that I was able to, and I don't even know how I stumbled upon that, but I just realized that at an early age. And so it's just, I'm just going to continue buying real estate until I guess I burn myself out, but I don't think I'm close yet.
Yeah, no, thanks for sharing that. I mean, you're wise beyond your years because
Thank you, sir.
basically for me, I was just chasing 100 units, right? And then like once I hit the goal, to your point, it felt empty when I hit. I was like, oh, it
Yeah,
didn't feel as good as I thought, but it was more of the chase to get there, which was more exciting, right?
yeah, for sure.
So it's funny, like they say in your 20s, you're just focused on a destination. In your 30s, you realize it's about the journey. And in your 40s, you
Yeah,
realize it's about the company, right? So it's like a progression
that's cool.
as like an investor as you kind of build wealth. And yeah, I love how you kind of mentioned like, yeah, at the point that we're at, like I know what you mean. To help me build to my certain point, I was focused on ROI, right? And so
Hmm.
the best ROI is typically going to be more leveraged, typically,
Hmm.
right? That's why people like the bird because they call it the infinite return, right? That's kind of the pitch thing. I have $0 in the deal, it cash flows, and I have my money, increase my velocity money, and go buy another one. So that's focused on ROI. But the part that I've been kind of transitioning towards over like the past 2 years, once my portfolio has stabilized and I kind of pivoted to more focus on my personal life, probably the past 2 years because I slowed down on real estate. It was like I've been focusing more on like return on like my happiness or return on my time.
Hmm.
Because I'm sure you're experiencing once you kind of hit a certain thing, like, okay, is it worth it for me to like buy this deal if it only makes me like 10,000 bucks? At this point, it
Exactly.
may not be worth that headache, but would it be worth it for me to like take down another apartment complex where I could make 800 to $1 million in forced appreciation and cash flow? Right. So like
Hmm.
you really have to like elevate your time and is it worth it? And to your point earlier, like we don't need deals. Like, I don't
Yeah,
need a deal. You don't need a deal. We can literally stop right now, both of us, and we own more real estate than most people already at our age. And once you kind of realize that, that's when you become the most powerful because now
yeah.
you're unemotional, you're agnostic. I'm like, I'll offer you this offer because it makes sense for me. Take it or leave it, right? I'll give you, multiple offers. My seller finance offer, which is higher, my 50/40/10 offer, which if you carry 40%, I can give you an aggressive offer, or my quote unquote conventional financing offer. So like once you become like that systematic and that unemotional, like I felt like I became more dangerous in a weird way because like you
Oh
said,
yeah,
I'm not desperate. I don't need your deal. I don't need to buy your deal. But if it's a good deal, I'm not going to pass it up either. So it
100%.
has to fit like my criteria to do that. So like, like I said, it's kind of a privilege of those who've like we've scaled up. Like in the beginning, we took more risk, right? Like you took risk with your rentals and like maybe not as the great areas as maybe today. But yeah, it's kind of like how you evolve as a real estate investor. Like you said, your priorities, like let's say in when you're 30, Cam, like your priorities might change and you have the assets to do what you want to do. If you said, you know what, I don't want to work anymore. I just want to like chill in Maui for like a year and I'm okay
Hmm.
just like pausing life. You could like, yeah, get an Airbnb in Maui for a year and probably afford it. Right. So it's
Exactly.
really that optionality and knowing that you have options. I think that for me, that was the big appeal of like real estate was like, if I'm just sick of my job one day, I just can go home, sell two assets. Yes, I pay taxes, but now I'm free. I don't have to do a W-2
Exactly.
if I don't want to. So just knowing that is really nice. So I kind of You kind of alluded to that, 50K per month goal. I mean, how'd you kind of come up with that goal of 250K net per month? And I assume that's between your flips, your real estate business, and then your rental income.